Every algorithm update is recoverable. Let us show you how we do it. Hi, I'm Jaryd Krause, host of the Buying Online Businesses podcast, and today I'm speaking with Rad Paluszak, who is a web developer and software architect with 20 years experience. He has been a technical mastermind in the SEO industry since 2010, and now he heads up the Buying Online Businesses SEO team with another partner, Rafal. Rad's specializations include international and technical SEO, machine learning, understanding machine learning, as well as looking at SEO from a business and management's perspective. Now, in this podcast episode, Rad and I talk about how we helped a client increase their revenue by 373% and increase their organic traffic by 55%, which is absolutely awesome. We talk about what went into the SEO audit that we did, why and how this site was disrupted by an SEO attack 9 days after they purchased the business, the Google penalties that it went through, 5 different Google penalties over a period of 3 months, 90 days, and how we actually audited the site, found out all of these things, the tools that we used to audit the site, to gather all this information and all this data, and how we compacted that and changed that into a growth strategy. So we talk about in this podcast some of the technical SEO things that we revised, worked on and fixed, and then what our growth plan was. And we added things like another version of the site in another language, and how that increased traffic right away, actually in fact faster than we expected. We also talk about how we added monetization to the site to increase revenue, and then we talk about the results and the traffic increase towards the end of the show as well. Now, there's so much in this, and I give you a bit of a brief when we start the podcast episode about how to get more information and more value from this. And this is based on a blog post, and you should be watching this via YouTube or via video somewhere if you can on our website. So yeah, let's dive in. This is such a valuable episode. Have you been lied to about how to increase organic traffic and grow your website? I too used to think that all you needed to do is add more content and gain backlinks. But this just doesn't work. More content and more links alone is not the answer. Nor do you need to butcher your website with generic SEO changes you picked up on some crummy online tutorial, leaving with a Frankenstein website that's slow and clunky. And because I got sick of seeing great people with great websites struggle to grow them, I decided to do something about it. I created an SEO service, which is not just about publishing content and getting links. Sure, we offer that. But first, we give you quick wins, which are SEO tweaks we can make to your website that actually boost your rankings. And then we lay out a killer SEO strategy to acquire more traffic and revenue that outranks your competitors with less content and less links. We've thoroughly tested this service on many websites before launching it and have achieved incredible results, which you'll see on our landing page I'm about to share with you. Now you can finally buy a business and give it to us to grow it for you. To check out our SEO service, head to buyingonlinebusnesses.com/SEO-services and book a call to chat with us to see what is the best growth strategy for you and your website. That's buyingonlinebusnesses.com/SEO-services, and the link will be in the description too. Rad, welcome back to the pod.
Hello, Jaryd. How are you? Good to be back.
I'm good, thank you. And yourself?
Yeah, good.
Yeah, good. All right, well, guys, we've got a lot to get through on this podcast because it's a fantastic case study. How to preface this, I guess, is we had a client buy a great business. Obviously, there were some challenges and risks involved with it. We conveyed that there were those risks involved and they were happy to purchase it. These are the things that they'd need to work on to get the business going good. It did have some seasonality to it, and the traffic was declining through seasonality, and we didn't know how it would behave at the bottom of the season. And something not so great happened. There was an algorithm update, and we needed to jump in and recover it pretty fast. And we did so, right, Rad? Got you guys on board. As you guys know, if you haven't seen, we've launched the the Bob SEO service, so people can basically buy the businesses. We've been doing this for many years, helping people buy businesses. And the next step is I've been helping people grow them with some one-on-one coaching. And I wanted to sort of scale that and help more people at scale. And we started an SEO service so people can buy businesses and give their businesses to us to help them manage, run, and grow them for them. So, and Rad has been heading up that with Raf. And this is a really cool case study to share with you guys how we've been able to do this with just one site that was hitting catastrophe, right, Rad?
Yeah, heading downwards for sure.
Yeah, yeah, it definitely hit catastrophe. So where do you want to start with this? I know we've guys, when you're listening through this, there is a blog post that we put out there, which is like a 27. It's basically a 27-minute read, but it's very dense. Rad has created another case study as well prior to this, the SEO blueprint strategy that you should check out. They're both of those on the Bob website, so go away and check them out, and there'll be links to those in the show notes. But if you go through this case study, which is actually called, the title of it is, I think it's algorithm. So it's out from algorithm penalty to 373% revenue growth case study. That's the title of it. So look for the title, from algorithm penalty to 373% revenue growth. You'll be able to click on that, go through it whilst you're listening to this episode if you can, or if you're listening in the car or somewhere where you can't, view things whilst you're doing what you're doing right now, refer back to this, because we've got step-by-step procedures with, it's basically a guide of what we've done and tools that you can use and screenshots and images that you can use as reference to help you grow your site. If you don't want us to, do it for you, you can do it yourself with a lot of the stuff that we're sharing here. It's out of this world valuable, Rad. It's really cool. So make sure you guys link to that. And we're going to be sharing a few things on presentation. We're going to be sharing a few slides. So listen on in through through and watch it through YouTube if you can, or refer to the blog post. So with that admin stuff covered, Rad, let's where do you want to start with this? Is there anything that you want to pre-frame or mention?
Well, I mean, first of all, that blog post, 27 minutes sounds like a lot of reading, but it's like you said, it's so dense, and I don't know, it's probably like 6 or 7,000 words, something like that. It's a book with
It's
a
huge.
lot of images, a lot of stuff. The whole blueprint, how we really worked on this website. Um, so I've got a presentation which I'm happy to present during this recording. However, the presentation is actually cut short, and I'll tell you where exactly, because yeah, we wouldn't be able to cover all of that here now. One thing I will definitely mention, I mean, at least at the time of recording this podcast, there's been a recent core algo update in Google. Google's just released it recently, and they named it, as they usually do, with the name of the month when it's happening. So they named it August 2023 core algo update. And usually with this core algo updates, they affect different websites. I talk about the little bits of the uh, actual ins and outs of a core algo update, and why is it different from any other updates that are happening throughout the year in the presentation. And obviously in we're talking about this in the blog post. But yeah, I think this is going to bring a lot of value, because if you were affected with that, I mean, I'm hoping you can just take some of the recipes we're sharing and try to apply them there. And if you can't, or are struggling with that, we're happy to help, and help you, help guide you through it.
Yeah, awesome. That's a really good thing to preface. because this is going to be relevant for this update that just has happened in like previously just now in August, and then there's still so many things as the new updates do roll out. There's going to be so many things that are relevant for you guys that you can use for future updates as well, or changes to the algorithm. So yeah, let's get into the meat and potatoes, Rad, of this. So let's get you sharing your screen, guys. While Rad's sharing your screen, if you can view this on YouTube, be viewing on YouTube. And where do you want to start with this, Rad? Do you want to start with where the site was at?
Yeah, I'll introduce a little bit about the site, then go through what we did, what happened, and then how we took it from there. Because we also had a growth plan other than just a recovery plan that we made along the way.
Mm,
Just before I
awesome.
start, I think it's worth mentioning because I don't know, emphasized that Google's just released a CoralGo update, and it might have sounded like what we're sharing here, it only applies to the ones in the past that happened. But since every single CoralGo update that is being released by Google is very similar in nature, which obviously I'm going into a little bit more detail in the presentation. Those recipes that we're sharing should be pretty universal, and you can use them any time your website is affected by anything that happens in Google. Um, but yeah, I mean, I
Cool.
think if you're happy with that, without further ado, I
Yeah.
can jump right into it.
Yeah, I'll hand the microphone over to you, and I'll jump in intermittently to maybe debrief a few things for people to emphasize on.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So, speaking of the client, they have recently, back at that time, purchased a website in home and garden niche. So, like Jaryd, you mentioned, it's affected by some seasonality. However, yeah, the seasonality wasn't the only thing that happened here. Now, very interesting thing and very important at this stage was that the purchase date of that website was on the November the 20th, which is basically the date when escrow released the funds to the previous owner, and therefore the website uh, technically changed hands. Now, what happened
Hmm.
was, and I have a little thing here.
A few
Don't know if you
moments
guys can
later.
hear it. A few moments later, um, so for those of you who aren't watching it but just listening, I have a screenshot here from Ahrefs graph showing mainly the number of referring domains. And I put the line here exactly on the 21st of November, which is the next day after the escrow released the funds. A few days later, on the 29th, for example, the number of domains that this site was getting increased by over double overall, and there was like a huge spike of referring domains. And this is pretty much something that, first of all, drew our attention, but we'll get to that in a second. Now,
Yeah, so over a 9 day period, 9 days after settlement, basically, there was this 50% growth in referring domains, which we'll break down shortly, right?
yeah, exactly. So now, overall, the website, looking at the period of time when it started losing traffic, which was towards the end of September, up until when roughly we started working on the site, which was mid or second part of December. Comparing that to the previous period of time, the website lost almost 40% of traffic user sessions. Um, and I've
Wow.
got here
Yeah.
just not so I'm not trying to put all the blame on the referring domains that just started kicking in that 9 day window after the site was purchased. So I've got a screenshot here also just showing that there was a decline, a visible decline over the whole period of time. So from end of September until mid December or towards the end of December. However, the highest drop was unfortunately around exactly after the settlement date, which obviously,
Yeah, like when the referring domains started, when the increase in referring domains started, that was when it started to dramatically decrease in traffic, right?
yeah. And we got some earnings numbers from this website. So around September, at the best of our knowledge, website was earning around $2,000, and then in December it was only just shy of 900. So you have the earnings slashed in over half, and then in January, which
Hmm.
is basically when it hit rock bottom, was only $669. So understandably, understandably, the client was really worried and kind of freaking out about the investment, because you're buying a website expecting much higher earnings, and then something happens and boom, everything it goes to like one third of what it was getting. So understandably, they were really worried about the investment. Now, the action plan. The thing with SEO is, and a lot of SEOs will say that every site is different, so the strategy will be slightly different. Websites will have a different history, different link profile. Things will essentially look different. However, what you end up doing is usually during the investigation analysis stage, you have a process, and usually you're performing similar things. And when we approach pretty much any website, being it a modest blog or a huge e-commerce, doesn't really matter. We always started with an audit. Now, how much resources on our side go into the auditing, that depends of obviously on the size of the website. However, this is like the main part that we start with, because I like to say, how can you help a website without understanding it first? So this is why we start with the audit, because we need to understand it. And the audit takes,
Yeah, and
yeah, yeah, sorry, go on.
yeah, go on. I'll just say let's break down what goes into the audit, which we're going to do
Mhm.
now. Cool.
Yeah, so the audit usually consists of technical analysis and implementation, Google Search Console auditing, keyword research. This is part of a growth plan, actually, but it's we need to look at the keywords and analyze them and look where we can take them. Link building, planning, strategizing, and then executing link building as well, and the content plan. So these are the usual elements we look at, and I hope you agree, Jared, that these are the elements that are pretty standard for every website, and they cover all of those most important elements in SEO for any website.
Yeah, of course. The keyword research, understanding like you got to do keyword research for a growth strategy and in the content plan. But through the audit, you obviously need to look at what keywords are doing what and where they're at and their positions and volume and keyword density and all that sort of stuff, right? So each as we go through, so we're glossing over things here and of what we have done. That's why we want you to refer back to the full article on the site and go through it in detail, because that will be far more detailed than what we're covering here. But this is to just sort of showcase that like these are things that can be done, and then you can go away and do each individual thing on your site alone, and see it in more detail through that post. So yeah,
Yeah,
awesome. Thanks, Rad.
absolutely. I think so. Also, just for a slight clarification, we use a mental shortcut when we say SEO audit, because if you think about it, audit usually results in a document or a spreadsheet or a presentation, depending on the format from different agencies. In our case, it's a pretty hefty document usually, that specifies issues on the website, and then the auction plan. That's why I can't stress enough that it's not just the audit, because audit isn't really executing the strategy. Audit allows you to know the
Mm,
website, then based on that you're building the strategy, and then you're approaching the implementation. Obviously, without those three elements, if you only have audit and only strategy but no implementation, then nothing really reacts on the website because you haven't really done anything other than analyzed everything properly, right?
Hmm.
Now, obviously,
Yeah.
for this particular case, since we noticed pretty early on that we were actually dealing with some sort of penalty. We did penalty analysis, and obviously, like I mentioned, since we have this huge spike in links, we performed analysis towards a potential negative SEO attack, and then we were also testing different approaches more towards core algo updates, which I'm also talking about in a second. And then and this is going to sound like we staged these things one after the other, but pretty much everything was happening roughly at the same time, or there was like a month difference between everything. So we also, like I mentioned earlier, we had a growth plan for this site because you can't really lose this, let's say, umbrella goal that is above all the other goals, that is growing the website, regardless of whether you're under the penalty and your traffic is temporarily down, or you're just growing it and everything is good and dandy. You just need to have some sort of growth plan. um, and for this particular case, we also looked at the monetization, and I could sit here and talk about auditing and how we did the whole audit in detail, but that would probably take us half a day because it is
And you can look at it through the you can look at it through the post as well. Yeah.
exactly, and yeah, auditing takes a little bit of time and is very mundane. So what I would like to do instead is to focus on leveraging the main things from the audit. So I'm mentioning most of the things we did. However, I focus on a few that really gave us the leverage that we could execute it and implement it faster. So with the SEO audit, our best tool, hands hands down, is Sidebulb. We use that crawler for most of the analyses that we do. After we crawl the website, it gives you a nice, visually also appealing audit score, and everything is nicely laid out there. And I think you said that in the SEO blueprint article on your website, and I think it's also mentioned in this whole article of the case study, that even if you're not if your technical prowess is not that great, if you did run the audit with Sidebulb on your website, you can basically just export a PDF report from it, give it to a web developer, and web developer will already probably fix like a lot of these things. And this is how
Yeah.
great Sidebulb is. Now, for the audit elements, in this particular case, we had looked at mainly or found duplicate content, images with missing alt text. And now I it makes me laugh about that a little bit, because even the cheapest tool on the internet that does something similar to SEO auditing, most of the reports that you're getting from people who are only salespeople trying to get you to buy SEO from them, all of these reports will include something like, "Oh, your images are missing alt tags." And the thing is, we usually don't react to these things. However, as SEO's job, your main thing is to assess how severe the issue is versus how difficult it's to implement it versus the potential benefit. And in that case, when we were looking at images with missing alt text, you can imagine the website was in home and garden niche, pretty visual, a lot of equipment, a lot of guides, need images. So if we looked at that, and like only 10% of the images on the entire website, and that was over 1,000 of them in total had alt text, and we actually assessed that it's pretty important to do that. And actually, through just fixing alt text and adding alt text on the images, we gained some traffic through image search, which was great. We also looked at page speed and core web vitals things, duplicate or multiple H1 tags, and missing this meta descriptions. Now, for the last two, so H1 tags and missing meta descriptions or meta descriptions in general, we found recently crawler called Horseman, and it's a very simple, very cheap tool that is just simple crawler, you would think, but the beauty of it and power lays in the fact that you can connect Horseman with, for example, ChatGPT or other external tools. And what it does, it looks if you know a little bit of JavaScript, or you can actually amend the codes of in the examples that they give you. You can basically crawl your website once, like you would usually do with Sitebulb, but Horseman, at the same time as it's crawling the site, can actually take and fill in all the missing meta descriptions, um, can rewrite your H1 tags, can add your H2 tags, can give you a list of all of the pages where your heading structure isn't how it should be. So it does a little bit more logic, and it's most powerful where it connects to external tools. Like I said, my favorite, and this is here just an example, how we're using um, text of the Horseman to rewrite text of the article to do some summary of the content, which is which is really great. And after it runs through your website and does that, you can export all of that to a CSV file. And when you have the CSV file, if your website is on WordPress, you can use WP All Import plugin, which takes in the CSV file, and then you can just use a drag and drop to match whatever you have in the CSV file to the fields in WordPress, and then uploads like hundreds of records. This is where we amended like 322 records in like 2 minutes through WP
So
all
cool.
import after running some prompts with Horseman on the side. So it's a great automation. It saves tremendous amount of time, and it's actually pretty simple when you get used to Horseman's little scripts. It's very simple. Okay, but moving on, I also mentioned. Okay, sorry, you wanted to ask something?
I was just gonna say that's the audit. Yeah, let's move on. Yeah, I mean, there's all this, guys. You can check out all this in the post. So um, there's so much in the post. We're just going to refer to. But
Yeah,
yeah, continue on. Let's go.
absolutely. So another thing we did as during the auditing stage was Google Search Console review, and we found one of the biggest issues that you can actually find in Search Console under the indexation. If you ever see crawled currently not indexed, and let's say you have 1,000 pages on your website or 1,000 articles, and then like in this case we had like 758 pages that were crawled but not
Mm.
indexed by Google, that indicates that Google has a problem with something on your site, that is it's not so eager to index the content after it saw it on the site. Now, usually, and this was our observation on this site, this problem has something to do with the site structure. And just this isn't from any tool. I just made a visualization um, with Chat GPT. But to give you an idea, we on the site we had over 500 blog posts, and I think they were located
Yeah.
under like 5 or 6 categories. So I have a visualization here. But you can imagine you have 500 blog posts, 5 categories, so it's roughly 100 blog posts per category. So Google will spend a lot of time to actually get to those individual posts, and you can think that you can logically see that it's not perfect from like the information architecture standpoint. So what we did,
Yeah.
we introduced like 20 more categories, and it really helped with spreading out the content on the site and making it more understandable for Google, and Google started crawling it much better, and actually that helped with the indexation and solved our problems with the site structure as
I
well.
guess it's I guess it's good to point on this with the site structure that if you've got five categories and you've got 500 posts and 100 each category, that you've only got certain amount of crawl budget that you get from Google when they come to your site to crawl it and find your articles and rank things, right? So if you've got one category that's got 100 posts in it, for example, and you got five of them, like it may expend a lot of that budget on just one category trying to find what's going on in there when you got 100 posts. But if you spread them out to multiple ones, then it makes it so much easier and you spend less crawl budget and you can get Google to look at your site far more effectively without it having a huge load on the crawl budget. Is that right, Rad?
Yes, that's a perfect explanation. Um, I for this I actually like to use an analogy. So if you imagine you have a big crate of let's say um, colorful coins, right? And each
Yep.
crate is like 1 ton. So obviously, if someone told you, okay, find me one golden coin in that crate, that would take you probably hours looking through and taking out bit by bit from that crate, and looking through all of these crazy colorful coins to find just one that is golden, right? However, if you took,
Hmm.
I don't know, 30 buckets, and each bucket would get a little bit of those coins, and you started looking through them, and there's a few people looking through them, you would be likely to find that one coin much faster. And this is
Hmm.
how Google operates. So the crawl budget, just to, if you guys don't know how to measure it, it's basically time that Google is allowed to spend on the website. The more popular website, the more time Google is allowed, or Googlebot is allowed to spend crawling it. Okay, and so if Googlebot runs out of this time, like you said, if it has like that big category to go through, if it runs out, so hits the limit on the crawl budget, it
The
just
budget.
goes away,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
comes back later this week or later next week, whatever the schedule is for your website. So but if you make those categories smaller, automatically Google is probably much faster to discover all the posts within each category, and then it sees that, oh, hang on, there is actually one more category. So it might increase the crawl budget, seeing that there is more to see on that website. Because if the only thing it sees in the category is pagination and another blog post and another blog post, you can think about it like it's getting boring for Google bots, and it has no reason to try to explore more, because it knows, okay, it's just the same old, and I can discover it
Yeah.
at a later date.
Awesome. Awesome analogy of site structure. So good for people to understand. So, yeah, let's move on to that penalty analysis because this is what I really wanted to chat about around these referring domains and why that may have happened or maybe not, but certainly what the reaction was from these referring domains where they, yeah. So, let's dive into that.
Yeah, for sure. So we we started working on the site around mid December last year. We had keywords dropping, traffic dropping, everything was looking pretty dire. And like I said,
Hmm.
our initial suspicion was neg SEO attack because we saw this huge spike in the referring domains that drew our attention because
Yeah.
it was just so unusual. Um,
Let's talk about the negative SEO attack. So that can be where somebody will refer a bunch of spammy links to a site and its pages, which is like explain that for us, and how the site can react from that.
mhm. So before I start, a little disclaimer, just so if someone's from Google is listening to that, according to official comments from Google representatives, John Mueller and these folks, something like negative SEO doesn't exist. However, practically looking at that, we've seen that happen quite a few times on different websites. So we have an inclination to think that Google might be claiming that something like negative SEO doesn't really work, doesn't exist. However, we think it actually does, and it and it can affect your website. Now, what it is, it's basically someone or something, automated tools, automated websites are building vast numbers of links towards a domain. And those links might be with the intention to be punitive on the site's traffic. That's why it's called negative SEO attack, because they're meant to basically derail your SEO strategy and affect your keywords and the rankings in a negative way.
Mm.
Sometimes it happens that something looks like a negative SEO attack because all of a sudden you're getting a lot of referring domains, but it's just an automated system that is maybe, I don't know, collecting your images and then linking to those images to give you credit and to generate traffic for those websites that are showing your images. We've seen that it does look like a negative SEO attack, but usually doesn't affect your rankings and traffic. So, so it's not really it's not really an attack. It's just a coincidence. No, in this case, we definitely dealt with the with something that for sure looked like a negative SEO attack, but just so I've got this here. Another suspicion before we go to negative SEO attack. Um, our another suspicion was the core algo update, because in that same period of time that we were working on the site, or while the site started losing traffic, there were three pretty big core algo updates and another two also big algorithm updates in Google, but these were more related to links. So there was
Yeah,
like the
so you've
whole
got here
mixture of
people.
uh,
Yeah, for people listening, we've got basically dates of updates, and the names of those updates and what they were. And we've got what, five of them here listed on our screen, and each of those updates were linked to, like product reviews, core updates, October SAM update, helpful content update, link, spam update. Multiple things happened within this period,
yeah.
which was a cluster storm of
Yeah,
things that had
enough
happened.
said that the end of 2022 was very active from Google's side, because in within 3
Yeah.
months they released 5 big algo updates, very broad algo updates. So this is quite unusual for Google. We've seen that before, but it's still not that usual. Like you said, it was a cluster of updates. But
Mm,
yeah, back to negative SEO suspicion. So I've got a screenshot here where I highlighted two updates that were happening in that time that were related to links. Like I said, there was five,
mhm.
and three of them were broad core algo updates, and two were related specifically to links. Now, when we looked at the dates, and then we looked at the number of links that the website was getting in November, we started sort of seeing, and I say sort of seeing because when when you're dealing with a penalty when you're dealing with an algo penalty, you sometimes are um you sometimes need to basically take into consideration things that don't really appear to be an issue. Okay, so the more we were looking at that date alignment with when the website was losing traffic, the more we started seeing that roughly 2 weeks after every link related update from Google, the website was hit. Okay, so that gave us an idea. Okay, negative SEO attack. And if we, like I said, combined it with that huge spike in the links, plus we combined that with websites relatively very low domain rating, which is by some considered a good measurement for websites authority, me included, by the way. We started seeing that as a really potentially big culprit of the decline. So what we did,
Mm,
we did a full link review of everything that was going towards the website, especially in this period of time. And I've got a list here. Some of these links you can copy or just check out. The websites which we identified, they did look really, really, really bad. I've got an example here. So for those of you who aren't seeing this, just listening, we have a page that is definitely with some bad content, just spam content with added links.
it basically just looks like a page full of keywords, dodgy links,
Yeah,
and it doesn't actually make sense.
no, not at all.
uh,
And
yeah,
that,
and that's linking, and there's multiple ones of these linking to this site that we were working on,
yeah,
which obviously Google's like, that's not valuable. That drags down the site that we were working on, right?
yeah, for sure. You have no reason for this page or the whole domain or several domains that look the same. There's no reason for them to
Mm,
exist, and that it did seem like it was done on purpose or it was built for negative SEO or some really bad type of old school SEO link
mm,
scheme. But yeah, it does look really, really, really bad. So what we did, we like I said, we identified a lot of these, and then we just added them to a disavow file. We disavowed over 400 or exactly 440 domains. uh, it just to emphasize, I'm not personally a big fan of disavowing domains because I've seen it too many times that SEOs were a bit too trigger happy with with disavowing, and they just disavowed too many good domains or domains that were actually providing some sort of value. Google, and by the way, I'm always trying to weigh what Google officially says, and one of the things they say is that they don't really allow, like I said, negative SEO to happen, and they're really good at identifying bad links. So there's not much need nowadays for disavowing. And I can agree with the part that there is not much need with disavowing because those domains that are so blatantly bad for you, Google is easy to take care of. However, the problem appears or arises when you're actually dealing with something that is most likely a negative SEO attack. Like in this case, you have a big spike of really bad domains flowing to your website in a short period of time. Google is just not,
a 50% increase in referring domains,
yeah,
and that increases all basically from non-valuable links. that's something to deal with.
Yeah, Google is just physically not able to crawl all of these bad domains, to notice them, and then to take action to actually disavow them algorithmically on its own. It's just not able to find them all. So in this case, we added them to this vow file to help it out.
Awesome.
Now, another thing is, and that's another screenshot that I have here for those of you who are listening. I'm showing Google Analytics traffic graph for this website with added periods or dates when any algo update has happened in that period of time. And this is, I think, you can assess that yourselves if you're watching it, and Jaryd, you can confirm, but it's pretty clear that every single one of those updates caused some detriment to the traffic of the site.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And guys, you can see this on the blog post that we're linking to as well.
Yeah.
We go through all of these images in the
Hmm.
blog post too. So, yeah, you can see that there was a storm of the algo updates and then also the negative SEO attack. So we needed to do some work. So, should we move on to talking about some of the updates and then into what we did to grow this?
Yeah, yeah. So just quickly, why? So core algo update is a very specific thing that Google rolls out. If you think about it, it's not just an individual thing that's happened to your website and you've just fix it and that's it. It's think about it in the in terms of the whole playing field shifting. It's This might be different reasons for that. It might be something like the name suggests, changed at the core of the algorithm. AI got smarter or updated the weights of how it looks at the parameters. But one thing is for sure, there's no individual fix. And in fact, you didn't, if you think about it, your site didn't really get penalized per se. It sort of deserved, it sort of got what it deserved based on what changed in the algorithm. So the overall quality of the site kind of deserved it. So just to emphasize, it's not any one thing you did or didn't do, it's everything. It's like the whole picture that you should be looking at. So with that in
It's
mind,
the whole site. It's not just one part of the site. It's the whole site. And then how does that site, your site you've got, behave in the environment of the new algorithm or the updated version of the algorithm? So there's multiple things on the site that may need changing, right? It's not just like, oh, I just need to change, make sure my content's valuable. It's like it's a lot of other things as
yeah,
well that could happen.
precisely. So
Yeah.
if that's all of the things that might have happened, so what we did, we went through the auditing that we did once again and just went back to the mundane basics. So we rewrote most of the meta tags. We looked at 404 file errors, and just did overall cleanup. We did content improvements. We looked at FAQ sections, key takeaways. And by the way, speaking about content improvements, um, that was just it's an example of one final takeaway from one of the articles on this website. And I'm just highlighting some really badly written from language wise content here. Uh, but my very favorite of that is, and I'm going to quote it. The sentence says, "There is nothing for a lifelong last, so there is no reason to be upset about the replacement." And I think what what it was trying to say, it was meant to say that nothing lasts forever. So whatever part or whatever equipment sometimes has to be
Yeah.
replaced. But you can see how bad this content was. Obviously, it's all in the screenshots on the website, and
It's written very poorly. That we highlighted multiple parts in just like two paragraphs there were written super poorly.
yeah,
So updating
it
that
must
is
have been spun content or something. But
yeah.
apart from that, like I said, we introduced FAQ sections for most of the content, and obviously added JSON LD structured data to that. We introduced key takeaways for most of the websites at the beginning of the article. I've got a screenshot here from the Daily Mail. All the big guys are now using it, which I think very user friendly, because if someone lands on the top of the website, they can assess from the key takeaways if this article is something they're looking for or no. Um,
Yeah.
Now, the content tools we used for that was mainly GPT-4. We automated a lot of that, some of it using aforementioned Horseman, some of them just through API, some of that through ChatGPT. We also looked at people also ask, especially for the FAQ sections. And I know what you're thinking. You might be saying, "Oh, Rad, but isn't AI content like a little dodgy area from Google now? So no one really knows how Google say Google say one thing. They say, oh, it doesn't really matter where this content comes from, but no one really knows what is really the thing with it. What's the story?" So from our perspective, we usually try to find a good balance between automation and personalization. And I think if you think about that from this perspective, it's pretty straightforward that you can use the automation, but make sure there's enough personalization in that.
Yeah, make sure it's super valuable. Guys, we also, Rad, you and I have done a podcast on AI content generation risks,
Yes.
and it's episode 220. And it's titled AI Content, the Good, the Bad, the Ugly, and How to Make It Truly Valuable. So that's with you and I, Rad. If you guys want to know more about AI generated content and how to do it the right way and avoid the risks, then episode 220. Check that out.
Yeah, that was very, very meaty episode.
It was media, and the amount of links that we have in the show notes for that on all the different tools and all the different
Yeah.
things is huge. And we got some really good reviews from people saying, "Wow, that was a great podcast episode," and the resources that we have in the show notes there are out of this world valuable. So, guys, check that
Mhm.
out. Episode 220.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna pick up the pace now, because it's actually
Yeah, yeah.
getting pretty
Let's
long.
move into
So
the growth, some of the growth things that we did,
towards
more
early
growth things that we
March, we
did.
started seeing good signals that the penalty is lifting. We're still losing keywords, but went started we started gaining traffic, and it might not initially make sense, but if you think about it, Google has already granted us traffic, so the trend reversed. However, why we were losing keywords is because Google was still purging those keywords that it thought um, were not aligned with either user intent or just didn't make sense to for this site to rank for. But that was a
Mhm.
really good signal we saw here. Um, what happened though? So, like I said, early March we started seeing some early signs of recovery. Then, for those of you guys who are just listening to that, there's a term we use internally called bucket of death, and l- that is called that because when you look at the traffic graph on the website, if you suddenly see a big decline and a couple of weeks later you see that this traffic comes back, it kind of like looks like a bucket. That's why we call it
Yeah.
bucket of death. Usually that happens, and it doesn't necessarily mean that you had to fight with a penalty or some devaluation. It sometimes happens naturally around algorithm changes that Google releases. It means that Google is re-evaluating your website. So if you're losing traffic for sometimes 2 3 weeks and then it comes back usually stronger, then that means that Google sort of took your site down with the new algo, but then reevaluated the entire website and everything went back. So we had this little scare here from end of March until like mid April. But the graph here, for those of you who don't see that, the graph here looks very, very, very strong after that bucket of death moment.
Yeah, huge growth up and to the right.
Yeah. So for the growth plan, like I said, we did keyword research, content planning, link building, additional monetization and Spanish version. Now, I won't go into all of these. Just a few notes about the additional monetization. If you have a content website, obviously that's a great way to monetize the site. However, this
Through ads.
through yeah, sorry, through ads.
Through ads is a great way to,
I
yeah,
forgot you don't see my screen. Some of you might not see my screen. Yeah, so if
yeah.
you're earning money through ads, from for display ads, then obviously that's a great way to monetize the site. However, sometimes it's difficult to optimize it and earn more money with that. And I just have an example here because you can obviously place more ads on the site, but then that example here that I have, it looks like there's only like, I don't know, 30% of the screen that is actual content from the website, and then everything else are ads. So this isn't.
In fact, Zoe did a study that the less
Mhm.
ads, less means more sometimes, well, quite often
Yeah,
actually,
'cause conversion is
because of
better,
user
I
experience,
suppose.
better
Mhm.
conversions, better user experience on the site. So the site gets better, SEO rankings, all that sort of
Yeah.
stuff. So, yeah, let's talk about what we added in terms of monetization on top of ad
Mhm.
revenue.
Yeah, just one thing to add to too many ads on the page, that can actually lead you to get penalized by Google, because Google has this algorithm that detects how many ads there are, and if there's too many, you might get your site might get penalized. So we recommended
Great
this
point.
client for in particular Amazon Associates as the easiest program to start working with in terms of the additional monetization, because if you're talking about the products, you might as well just include some contextual affiliate links, and make some additional money with that. um, for that, our go-to plugin is AAWP. I think it's called something like Amazon Affiliates for WordPress. And we have two examples how a product box looks like that you can implement with a very simple one line shortcode from that plugin. It's very easy to add products from Amazon, whichever you want, and add those nicely looking, very aesthetically pleasing product boxes on into your content, and it just makes sense. Obviously, you need to remember that if you're going with Amazon affiliate associate program, it's also oversaturated, has relatively low commissions, and it has a pretty short cookie window. So there are upsides and downsides, sorry, of this program. I think it's just very easy to implement, and that's the biggest thing for it. So
Mm.
if you only monetize through display ads, the way to start making money with that is very easy, and then you can, for example, change it to some other affiliate program. I have some examples here like Impact or ConvertKit or Share a Sale, the Partnerize. These are very popular.
Yep.
They have sometimes uh, um, larger
Commission
commissions.
rates and larger cookie durations.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so you might essentially
Cool.
earn more money with these. However, with Amazon, it's a quick test. So if it starts bringing you some money, then you can obviously motivate yourself to jump ship to something else. Um, and obviously, there's plenty of things you can implement for additional monetization. You can create a newsletter, direct ad sales. You can just approach some brands and offer them ad space on your website directly. You can do lead generation, app sales, cross sales, drop shipping, and so on and so forth. I mean, I don't know what's your view on this, although I'm guessing similar to mine, Jared. That's the more l- ways to monetize websites, the better, because it just not only gives you more revenue streams, but also is more stable if something happens with your traffic, for example.
I do have caveats to that, which is depending on how much work is involved for the ROI that you actually want as well. That's involved
That's
with
true.
multiple monetizations. But yeah, let's move into the Spanish. Yeah, talking about adding another language in here.
Um, yeah, I'm just
Start.
gonna go through it very quickly. So we decided to create Spanish version of the website because the site was just in English. I mainly used ChatGPT to be my technical assistant because I'm a programmer, but I don't program in WordPress directly. It has its own caveats, which I don't really like. But ChatGPT was very helpful. We connected that with DeepL API translation. I've got an example code that I used here. Um, and the output when the whole thing was running. So within, after I built it, and by the way, it's g- important to mention that we did that on the site as a proof of concept, so we didn't charge the client anything for additional work that we spent on building this whole tool, or connecting it with api or doing the translation. Just we wanted to prove that it's going to work essentially. um, so we did 590 translate articles translated from English to Spanish within, I think, like 2 hours overall. Downloaded from WordPress, translated, uploaded back, all published with all the content. It was crazy. But the crazier thing, for me at least, it was something that really surprised me. After just a few days, Google actually indexed like 427 of them out of 590,
So
which
cool.
is a very fast indexing. Something you don't really see that often. So must mean that all of the changes that we did on the site were in Google's favor. It's just I've got a screenshot here. So since we put this Spanish version live within 3 months, roughly, I think roughly 3 months. So from April to July, it got over 5,000 clicks, 209,000 impressions. So yeah, the
Huge.
API translation was like $100 or something. I think it paid back double so far. So it maybe not have not
Yeah,
generated that much traffic. But if you're watching this, or if you have a look at the article later, you'll see that it's on the constant rise. So I think this traffic will pick up more over the next few months. Um,
for sure.
so it's great. Yeah, and just a summary. So obviously, speaking of the results, we did the recovery. We got the recovery year over year. Sessions and users were up 55%. So that's great. That is looking at the
Massive.
period of time April to end of June, because in all this
Yeah.
battle with penalty, we actually forgot
Yeah.
that Google Analytics, Universal Analytics, sorry, was retiring. So yeah,
Exactly.
we looked at April until end of June, and I've got some screenshots for that here, obviously. So that was 55% increase overall. Um, in sessions, 57% in users. But then if we added on top of that the next period, so from July to August, we still had like 10%, sorry, 9% increase month over month. So that is just to show that that year on year continued to grow after that period when Universal Analytics was retired.
Yeah.
Oh, and sorry, revenue numbers. So you remember how I said in January we hit rock bottom, $669. Since then, because obviously,
February. Yeah.
yeah, I was just gonna say in January, obviously we were a month in of our work, but this wasn't enough for Google to actually index anything. So our work hasn't been seen on the site yet. But just in February, it's gone up. March, it was already 1.5k. April, almost 3k, and then in May we hit 373% increase, and we've gone up to over 3,000 $100. So that was pretty good. I think after May, due to seasonality, um, display ads uh, commission has changed slightly, dropped down. So we went down with traffic, but then in July we also started hitting this sweet affiliate revenue numbers. So that's
Yeah.
just adding up, and just comparing to the lowest month, we still had like 262% increase in revenue. So I think that's pretty good
Wow.
myself.
Yeah, 262% increase in revenue is massive.
Yeah, that's
Absolutely.
all for the presentation. For those of you who are watching here, I've got a representation of AI imagining my my avatar. It looks kind of like The Witcher. So obviously we can
It
see,
does. You do look like the Witcher in that image there.
yeah,
Yeah.
we can see that AI isn't really based in reality that much. But yeah, thanks for this. That was the presentation. So
Yeah, thanks, Rad. That's so cool to see how much work went into this. And the client is stoked and over the moon with the results. And the business is going to just continue to grow because it's built now to withstand some serious changes. And he's just continuing to stay with us because the results are awesome, right? And the reason I want to record this is so you guys go away and check out this post, right? I'm going to link to it. It's going to be probably the first link in the show notes. Go away, check out this article. There's so much of what we talked about in it, step by step, that you can do for yourself. And if you don't want it, totally fine. We can help you with it as well. And that's why we set this up. That's why we set this service up. We had been working on our client sites, helping people buy sites for many years. And for the last sort of almost 10 months now, Rad, you and I and the team have been working behind the scenes, working on people's sites and growing them. Before we launched our SEO service, we decided to proof and get tester proof and all that sort of stuff. And yeah, we've got some really good case studies, and this is one of them. So that's why we launched it. And now people don't need to fuss, Rad, on, all right, if I buy a site, what do I do with it then next?
hmm,
Well, you can check out some of our content and our case studies. That'll help you grow it if you want to grow it yourself, or give it to us. We can grow it for you.
yep, precisely, exactly.
Absolutely. Anything else that you wanted to mention before we wrap this one up, Rad?
I think a word of advice: if you are hit with algo penalty, don't panic. It happens. It happens. I've seen that happen to some really good websites. Even though quite often there is some things, there are some things you can focus on, but overall, I've seen that happen to pretty good websites. That requires a bit more
Mm,
creative approach to trying to lift that. One big downside of a core algo update is it sometimes doesn't release your traffic when you fixed all of these things. Even sometimes you have to wait to the next or even and one other algo update to see
mm.
results. So don't panic, be patient. I know it hurts. It usually hits your revenue numbers, hits your traffic, so through that your revenue numbers. But I think most of the websites are recoverable.
Really good point. Really good point. Because a lot of people listening are like, I want to buy a content site, but I'm worried about like if it gets hit by an algorithm update. Well, if it gets hit by an algorithm update, you can fix it. You know, you can spend some of the resources that you're making from the business per month to go back into getting help to fix it, or you can fix it yourself with a lot of what we talked about here. And it can be difficult, it can be tricky. It's not a local approach. If I fix this one thing in my site, the rest, it'll unlock the rest, and it'll, Google will release my traffic. It is a global approach of multiple things, hence why it's smart to have and SEO help you with it. And that's what we do. And you can recover from these yourself. And I've helped people and seen people do it themselves. And if not, then don't freak when you're buying a content site, that if it gets hit by an algorithm update, it's going to go to zero. I've never really seen that happen ever, a site go to zero, unless somebody has the site and it gets hit by an update and they give up on it. That's when it goes to zero.
Yeah, good
But
point.
if you're active and you go, I'm going to do some things to change it, most of the time these are recoverable, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Rad?
Think about it from a bigger picture perspective, because and then I know it sounds like a waffle that doesn't really mean anything, but Google looks at the overall quality of the website. So if you unpack that, what overall quality means, it's all of the small things, all of the big things, user experience, your content quality, your information architecture, site structure, and all of that. So
Mm.
yeah, it's sometimes it is tough, but like you said, it's a good point. I've never seen I've never seen a site hit like absolute zero, unless it was doing something really, really deeply black hat. But I'm sure, especially people who work with you on due diligence, or use your framework, you're not going to buy a site like that, because it will reveal
Correct.
in due diligence. So you don't have to worry about it.
Awesome, Rad. Thanks for coming on again. Guys, check out more podcasts that I've done with Rad. We've done quite a few now. Episode 220 in particular, when we talked about AI generated content. And reach out to us whenever you guys need.
Yep. Okay. Thank you very much. Take care, guys.
Hey YouTube watcher, if you thought that video was good, you should check out this video here on the 2 best types of websites beginners should buy. Or check out my playlist on how I made my first 100K from buying websites and how to do due diligence. Check it out. It's an awesome playlist. You'll enjoy it.